Welcome back, everyone, to Sip and Talk. What episode are we on now? Is it 453? 454?
Does it really matter? I honestly lose track. We don't really keep count that closely, do we?
No, not really. Anyway, I was drinking my coffee this morning, and it hit me. Coffee's funny, isn't it? The taste is bitter, but it wakes up your brain.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I think maybe even more than coffee, people in certain places need, political caffeine.
Political caffeine? You mean like a special brew that helps you see straight through the propaganda and the official narratives?
Exactly. Like an extra strong shot of reality.
That'd have to be some seriously strong stuff.
Right. Because, we've been getting these videos sent in from listeners. They show how Chinese patriotism, especially the state-pushed kind, is getting seriously satirized online.
Yeah. That intense pressure cooker environment where you're just not supposed to question anything. Don't doubt. Don't think too hard.
Exactly. It makes me think of that huge internet meme that's been going around. China is not a liberated zone. It's a Republic of China fallen zone. The EAT one.
Yeah, that one.
At first, everyone was just sharing it as a joke, right? But the more it spread, the more people seemed to go, wait a minute, maybe there's something to this.
Totally. Because that word fallen, it's actually really subtle, isn't it?
It is.
We heard reports, people see it, they burst out laughing, like hysterically. But then apparently right after the laugh, there's this wave of sadness.
Yeah, kind of gut punch.
And they get that the laugh is self-irony. It's this weird realization we weren't conquered by America or Japan.
Right.
We were conquered by this imported idea, this thought system.
Mm-hmm. That self-irony runs deep. It's not really anti-China in the sense of hating the country or the culture. It's more like a self-awakening.
Right.
They don't hate the land itself. They've just completely lost faith in the people shouting, we represent you. We're doing this for your own good.
Yeah, exactly. It's a crisis of belief in the leadership.
Right.
And the videos I saw mentioned this idea of being colonized by Marxist-Leninist thought.
Right, the thought colonization concept.
Which sounds like a punchline at first, doesn't it? But the more you think about the history, it starts to feel less like a joke.
It really does. When a whole country's core culture, its beliefs, its traditions, get sort of overwritten by an imported ideology, you kind of have to admit, yeah, that is a form of colonization, isn't it?
It really is an intellectual colonization.
So that fallen zone joke, it's like humor born from tragedy, gallows humor.
Definitely.
And the people who get it, the ones laughing, that bitter laugh, they're the ones who are, clear-headed. They know they're living in this controlled reality, but they haven't given up their ability to think for themselves. They can still laugh about it, even if it hurts.
Yeah, that's the thing. Real freedom isn't just about who's technically in charge. It's about whether you can decide for yourself what you actually believe. And maybe those folks who can still laugh at their own situation, they're the ones closest to achieving that kind of internal intellectual freedom in China today.
I think that's spot on. And that's exactly what we're going to unpack today on Sip and Talk. When self-irony becomes survival, China, not a liberated zone, but a fallen one.
Yeah, we'll get into what lying flat really means, what this whole cutting leaks thing is about.
And where that Republic of China fallen zone terminology actually came from in the first place. It's got quite a history.
Okay, so let's dig into this ROC fallen zone idea. For a lot of listeners, maybe outside Asia, it probably sounds like some obscure historical reference. Why this specific phrase? Why now? Why do people on the mainland find it both funny and weirdly relatable?
Well, it's definitely not random. It's a direct echo from history. The term China fallen zone, it actually originated right after 1949.
Okay.
So, after the Chinese Civil War, the Communist Party, the CCP, won control of the mainland. The previous government, the Kuomintang, or KMT, which led the Republic of China, retreated to Taiwan.
Right. The ROC government moved to Taipei.
Exactly. And from Taiwan, the ROC government, still claiming to be the legitimate government of all of China, officially designated the mainland, controlled by the CCP, as the fallen zone.
So it was literally their official term for the mainland, like temporarily occupied territory.
Precisely. It was a formal political label. It signified that, from their perspective, the mainland wasn't legitimately ruled by the CCP, but was just temporarily seized or fallen. Of course, the CCP had its own term for the areas the KMT used to control. They called it the KMT-controlled zone, the EGF.
Okay, that makes sense historically. So when people bring this term back today, they're not necessarily saying they want the KMT back in power.
No, generally not. It's more about using that historical frame. The idea of a place whose, let's say, true political identity is suspended or lost.
Yeah.
They're using that as a kind of political symbol.
A symbol to do what? Question the current government.
Exactly. It's a subtle, maybe deniable way to question the fundamental legitimacy of the PRC regime itself. To hint that maybe this isn't the final chapter or the only legitimate narrative.
And that feeds right back into that core irony we talked about, doesn't it? The whole foreign ideology thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what gives the joke its real bite. The deep, deep irony is that the CCP built its entire story on liberating China from, internal problems and foreign interference.
Right, kicking out the imperialists, uniting the country.
Yet the system they installed, the whole political and social structure, is based on Marxism-Leninism, which is, fundamentally a foreign ideology, imported.
Let's just pause on that. We're talking Marx and Engels, German philosophers. Then Lenin in Russia, adapting it for a very specific kind of political takeover. It's a European intellectual product through and through.
Correct. And when this philosophy was imported into China, it wasn't like a gradual blend. It was a pretty abrupt replacement of what was there before.
You mean like traditional Chinese thought? Confucianism, Taoism, all that?
Yeah, exactly. For thousands of years, those traditions, Confucianism's focus on social harmony and ethics, Taoism's emphasis on balance and nature, plus various folk beliefs and local ways of governing, they formed the cultural bedrock. They had entirely different ideas about society, time, balance.
And then came this imported Soviet model.
Right. And it brought a totally different framework. Everything became about struggle, class struggle, constant revolution, political campaigns, all leading towards this highly centralized dictatorial state. It wasn't an evolution from within Chinese culture. It felt very much like a foreign system laid on top.
So the bitter laugh comes from seeing that switcheroo.
Pretty much. The clear-headed person looks at it and thinks, wait a second, we were told we fought off foreign powers, but weren't we actually in a deeper way colonized by this Soviet way of thinking?
Replacing the internal value system with an external one.
Exactly. That's why Fallen Zone hits so hard. It's not just about political control. It suggests the culture itself kind of fell to this alien political dogma.
Wow. So it frames their current problems not just as like a bad economy or corrupt officials, but as a fundamental crisis of identity. Like, is this system even really us?
That's the core of it. That deep cultural dissatisfaction, that feeling of living under an ideology that doesn't quite fit your history or sensibilities.
Yeah.
That's what makes the Fallen Zone meme such powerful political shorthand today. It captures a whole complex feeling in just a few words.
Okay, so we've got the historical context, the ideological critique, but let's get down to the everyday reality. Because honestly, that's where this dark humor really finds its fuel, right? In the economic pain. We absolutely have to talk about cutting leaks. Where did that phrase even come from, and why is it the perfect metaphor now for feeling just systematically ripped off?
Oh, it's incredibly vivid, isn't it? Cutting leaks basically describes this power dynamic. You have the powerful upper layers, the harvesters. Think big institutions, powerful investors, maybe even the state apparatus itself, the ones with all the info and capital. They're called the big players or bankers.
Okay, the harvesters. And who are the leaks?
The leaks are, well, pretty much everyone else.
Yeah.
The average person, the small retail investor, the general public. The vulnerable, disadvantaged bottom layers who keep getting their resources, their wealth, harvested.
And the leek imagery itself is key, right? I mean, for anyone who hasn't grown them, leeks are tough little plants.
They really are. You chop off the green tops, right? But the root stays strong in the ground, and boom, it grows back quickly. You can harvest the same leek plant multiple times a year, maybe 4 or 5, even 6 times.
So the metaphor is the public keeps getting cut down, keeps losing their money or resources, but they just keep coming back, ready for the next harvest.
Exactly. It captures this feeling of being stuck in a cycle. Maybe it's resilience. Maybe it's just that there's no other choice, no way to really leave the field. You keep participating in these systems, the stock market, the housing market, the job market, even though, deep down, they might be rigged against you. You get cut, you regrow, you get cut again. It's almost Sisyphean.
That's grim. And it started specifically in the financial world, like stock market forums.
Yeah, that's where it seems to have originated, probably back in the early 2000s. It was all about how the big players manipulated the market.
How so?
Information asymmetry, mostly. The big institutions, the shoe, they have better info, more capital. So they'd buy a stock low, maybe quietly accumulate shares. Then they might start spreading positive rumors or news, sometimes misleading, to pump up the price.
Getting the small guys excited.
Exactly. They lure in the inexperienced retail investors, the leaks, who see the price rising and jump in, buying high, and then...
The big guys dump their shares.
Bingo. They sell off their holdings for huge profits, the stock price crashes, and all the little guys, the leaks, are left holding the bag, stuck with massive losses. We've seen data points suggesting retail investors in some of these crashes lost, devastating amounts, sometimes up to 78% of what they put in.
Just wiped out, pure predation. But the term really exploded when it moved beyond stocks, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. That's when it became this universal shorthand. It perfectly captured that feeling of being financially drained, not just by market manipulators, but by, government policies or big corporate practices that look like opportunities on the surface.
But are actually designed to squeeze as much value as possible out of the average person.
Right. It applies everywhere now. Let's look at the big three areas where people feel like leaks. First, real estate. This is probably the biggest one for many.
The housing market, yeah. Insane prices.
Exactly. Local governments often rely on land sales for revenue, so they have an incentive to keep prices high. Developers play along, pushing prices even higher.
And the result is, people are crushed by debt just to own a home. I've heard that term 6 wallets.
Yes. The 6 wallets concept, it's brutal.
Sure.
It means a young couple basically needs to drain the savings of both sets of parents and all 4 grandparents just to scrape together the down payment for one apartment.
6 entire family units pooling money for one home.
It's often the only way, because the price-to-income ratios are just astronomical. Official figures for Tier 1 cities put the ratio at around 28.4 to 1.
28 times the average annual income for a house. Wow. What's considered, normal or manageable globally?
Well, the international alert line, where housing affordability becomes a serious social issue, is usually pegged around 15 to 1. So China's major cities are nearly double that danger level.
Meaning the average person is looking at, almost 30 years of their entire salary just for housing?
Pretty much. And young people feel this intensely. Data suggests that the average buyer born in the 90s is spending something like 62% of their disposable income just on their mortgage payments.
62%.
Yeah.
You're basically just working to pay the bank. You're a mortgage leak.
Yeah.
That's the term they use. It feels like structural exploitation designed to keep the whole economic engine running, funded by individual debt. Okay, second area, the labor market.
Ah, the infamous 996. Yep. 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week. Here, the cut isn't just money, it's your time, your energy, your life, basically. And it's fueled by this concept of involution. Right, involution. We should explain that quickly. It's not just working hard, is it? No, it's crucial. Involution is when competition gets fiercer and fiercer, everyone works harder and harder, but the overall rewards, the total pie, don't actually increase. Sometimes they even shrink.
Like running faster and faster on a treadmill that isn't going anywhere?
Perfect analogy. Everyone's exhausting themselves just to stay in the same place, or maybe avoid falling behind. You see this especially in hyper-competitive sectors. Surveys show around 42% of workers report working 996 hours, and it jumps to a crazy 67% in the tech industry.
And are they getting paid for all that extra time?
Often not. Another survey found 58% work overtime without compensation. It's just expected. This creates what they call ineffective effort. You're killing yourself, but for what? It destroys that basic belief that hard work pays off. The leak realizes, my effort isn't translating into personal gain, it's just being harvested.
Okay, housing, labor, what's the third area?
Financial and policy stuff. Sometimes it's quite explicit, like state media encouraging people to buy stocks out of patriotism, support the national economy.
And then the market tanks and the state funds or big players get out, but the average person is trapped again.
Exactly. It feels like being systematically set up to lose. Which leads us to maybe the darkest evolution of this metaphor. If being a leak wasn't bad enough.
There's something worse.
Yeah. The term human mineral hui.
Human. Mineral. Okay, that sounds incredibly bleak. What's the difference?
Well, think about it. A leak, however painful the cutting, it grows back, right? There's at least a theoretical cycle, a chance for renewal.
Okay.
A mineral. Once you mine it, extract it, consume it, it's gone. Finished. Depleted.
So if you see yourself as a human mineral...
It's the ultimate pessimism. It means you view your entire life, your education, your youthful energy, your years of labor, even the resources needed to care for your aging parents, as just a one-time resource to be consumed.
Consumed by whom?
By the state, by capital, by the system. For their benefit, not yours. There's no regrowth, no upward mobility, just Total extraction until you're used up.
Wow, that completely strips away any sense of agency or future, doesn't it?
Totally. It's the feeling that you're not a citizen, not the master of the country, like the official slogans say. You're just raw material, an input, disposable. The absolute endpoint of feeling like a harvested leak. So if you feel like you're trapped in this system, this giant leak field where the scythe is always swinging, how do you respond? How do you possibly fight back against something so structural?
And the answer that's really captured global attention is lying flat.
Exactly.
Now, on the surface, it sounds like just giving up, right? Being lazy.
Yeah.
But the analysis we've seen suggests it's way more complicated than that. It's actually a strategy.
It really is. It's framed as a kind of passive protest.
Yeah.
A conscious choice, especially among younger people who are staring down this insane competition, the evolution we talked about, plus rigid social structures, impossible costs of living. They choose to stop striving.
Stop chasing the carrot.
Precisely. They deliberately dial back their ambitions, their desires. They aim only for the bare minimum standard of survival. Why? To minimize their participation in the system.
And crucially, to minimize their value to the system.
That's the core logic. It's highly rational, even if it looks passive. The thinking goes, if I work 12 grueling hours just to get the same tiny reward as someone working 8, why kill myself for those extra 4 hours? The return isn't worth the cost.
So I'll just reduce my output, lower my expectations, make myself less harvestable.
Exactly. If I don't grow tall and lush, maybe the scythe will pass me by. It's described as rational passivity, or even a form of nonviolent non-cooperation, refusing to play the game by its rules.
And this isn't just an attitude, right? It translates into actual life choices, big ones.
Right. Oh, yeah. The specific refusals are the strategy. It's refusing to buy the overpriced apartment, refusing to buy the car, refusing to get married, because that brings huge financial and social obligations, refusing to have children, the ultimate long-term investment, and frankly, creating more potential leaks, refusing to climb the corporate ladder, because the stress outweighs the benefit.
Wow. So by disengaging from these major life goals, these traditional markers of success, they're directly reducing the amount of value the system can extract from them.
That's the idea. They're shrinking the target. And you can see the impact in the numbers. We mentioned marriage rates earlier, seeing a 22% year-over-year drop in registrations. That's not random noise. That's a massive demographic shift. And a lot of it is linked to this deliberate withdrawal from the pressures and expectations of the system.
So the individual choice, multiplied across millions, becomes a real structural challenge to the way society is set up. Fascinating. But this realization, this decision to lie flat, it doesn't just happen overnight, does it? The sources talk about a kind of psychological journey to get there, to become clear-headed.
Right. It's often a process, sometimes triggered by a shock to the system. It might start with intense anger and disillusionment. Maybe seeing something like the Shanghai lockdown, the arbitrary power, the economic chaos, makes you question everything.
Okay, initial shock and anger, then what?
Then often comes a phase of self-censorship. You learn very quickly what you can and cannot say online or even in private without getting into trouble. You start policing your own thoughts and words.
A survival mechanism in itself.
Definitely. But then comes the big leap, the painful analytical step, structural awareness.
This is where you connect the dots.
Yes, you move beyond blaming individuals or specific bad policies. You start to see the patterns, the corruption, the exploitation, the involution. You realize, wait a minute, this isn't just a mistake or a bug. This is how the system is designed to work. It's a feature benefiting those at the top.
Ouch. That's a tough realization.
It is. And that leads to the final stage, which enables lying flat, strategic indifference. Meaning you just check out emotionally. You stop expecting things to improve. You stopped investing hope or energy in the grand narratives. You don't participate more than you absolutely have to. You don't expect upward mobility. You just focus on preserving your own sanity and minimal resources.
And this clear-headedness, this strategic indifference, leads to these practical anti-harvesting strategies, a kind of survival guide for the disillusioned.
Exactly. We can identify 4 main paths people take based on their resources and risk tolerance. The first, and maybe the most definitive, is run.
Run as in literally leave.
Yep. Physical escape, emigration, finding work overseas, getting a degree abroad that allows you to stay out, basically getting out of the leak field altogether.
Who chooses this path?
Unsurprisingly, it's heavily favored by those with the means, education, and money. Data suggests something like 68% of those actively trying to run have a master's degree or a PhD. They have the capital, both human and financial, to actually get out.
Okay, so run is plan A, if you can manage it. What's plan B?
Plan B is the core strategy we've been discussing. Lie flat. Dang. This is for those who maybe can't leave or choose not to, but refuse to participate fully in the high-pressure game.
So low desire, minimal consumption, maybe staying single to avoid the costs of family.
Exactly. Reduce your needs, reduce your exposure. It's particularly common among, say, urban white-collar workers born in the 90s. Maybe 74% in some surveys identify with this approach.
Right. Then there's a third way. Hide. Singyin. How is that different from lying flat?
Hiding is more about superficial compliance while internally withdrawing. You still have to work. You can't just quit entirely. So in the workplace, you practice fake diligence, as they say. You look busy, you do the bare minimum not to get fired, but you're not invested.
Okay, putting on a show at work. And financially.
Financially, hiding means extreme risk aversion. Cash is king. You don't invest in the stock market. You don't buy property if you can avoid it. You hoard cash. And the numbers here are wild resident bank deposits hit a record high of 145 trillion RMB recently.
145 trillion. That's an insane amount of money just sitting there, not circulating.
It's a massive vote of no confidence. People are hiding their resources, refusing to put them back into the system where they might get cut.
Wow. Okay, run, lie flat, hide. Is there a more active approach? The fourth one was countercut. Them go.
Yes. This is the most proactive, but still often localized. It's about fighting back on specific fronts.
How? Like protests.
Sometimes, but often it's more subtle or uses the system's own tools. Things like anonymous leaks of information about corruption or bad practices, collective action to defend rights, like tenants organizing against landlords. And a big one is using official complaint channels.
Like hotlines.
Exactly. The government has set up things like the 12345 complaint hotline. People are now flooding it. Reports show calls jumped 180% year over year recently, and something like 60% were related to labor disputes, unpaid overtime, unfair dismissal. They're using the bureaucracy against itself to try and reclaim some small bit of leverage, to countercut in small ways.
You know, what really brings this all together for me is how this deep-seated frustration, this structural critique, loops all the way back to that original Fallen Zone joke. It's not just about the economy or abstract ideas anymore. People are actually reinterpreting the most fundamental symbols of the country itself.
Absolutely, the visual iconography.
Yeah. Specifically, the hammer and the sickle or scythe, really on the flag and emblem.
Right. Officially, those symbols are loaded with revolutionary meaning, aren't they? They represent the foundation of the People's Republic.
Explain that official meaning again.
Okay, so the hammer represents the industrial working class, the proletariat. The sickle, or scythe, represents the peasant class, the agricultural base. Together, they symbolize the worker-peasant alliance, the supposed bedrock upon which the CCP built its power and legitimacy.
The heroes of the revolution, basically.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
if you see yourself as a leak, constantly being cut down, how do you look at that scythe?
Oh, wow. Suddenly it's not a tool of the noble farmer harvesting grain for the people.
No. In this dark humor, this ironic rereading, the scythe becomes the very tool used to ruthlessly cut down the people's wealth. It's the harvester's weapon, used against the leaks. It becomes a symbol of their exploitation.
That's powerful. And the hammer. Does that get reinterpreted too?
Oh, yeah. It stops being a symbol of building socialism or industrial progress.
And it
becomes the tool used to crush dissent, to hammer down anyone who steps out of line, anyone who questions the narrative. It symbolizes the force used to suppress opposition, to maintain control, smash the opposition.
So the tools of liberation become the tools of oppression in this view.
Precisely. And even the color red on the flag.
Yeah.
Officially, it's the blood of the revolutionary martyrs, right?
Yeah.
But in this cynical rereading, it becomes the blood of the sacrificed. The blood of the leaks, the human minerals consumed by the system, bled dry by political control and economic extraction.
Man, that's turning the entire official symbolism completely inside out. Using the regime's own sacred images against itself. It's incredibly potent satire.
It really is. It functions as this psychological release, right? A way to name the feeling of oppression using the very symbols that are supposed to represent liberation. It's deeply subversive, even if it's just shared as a dark joke.
And this shared understanding, this symbolic language, it leads the clear-headed person to a pretty stark final diagnosis, doesn't it? They move beyond just complaining about this policy or that official.
Yeah, they start to see the whole structure. Their conclusion often isn't just the party is bad, but something deeper. They see the core issue as this kind of power-capital symbiotic entity.
Meaning the fusion of state political power with huge economic interests, both state-owned and nominally private.
Exactly. This fused entity, they feel, has designed a system that fundamentally relies on extraction to sustain itself.
You mentioned head taxes earlier in that context. What exactly do they mean by that? It's not a literal head tax, is it?
No, not literal. But the clear-headed person looks at the system and sees that things like extremely high income tax rates, especially compared to the services they feel they receive, and particularly the mandatory, very high Social Security contributions deducted from every paycheck.
Yeah.
They see these less as contributions towards a functioning society and more as obligatory payments just for existing and working.
Yeah.
A tax on your head, on your existence within the system, needed to feed the massive state machinery, service its debts, and fund its projects.
So if I'm just a human mineral being consumed and a huge chunk of my income is automatically taken in these mandatory contributions, I'm basically just fuel for the machine.
That's the feeling. The system is fundamentally extractive, taking a large fixed amount from individuals primarily to keep itself going, regardless of the individual's benefit or well-being. And that leads to that final, painful moment of clarity for many. The realization, okay, I'm not actually a passenger on this glorious train of national rejuvenation they keep talking about. I'm just standing out here in the leak field, and I can see the sides swinging.
Wow. So if we try to wrap this all up, this whole journey we've traced, from the fallen zone meme through cutting leaks to lying flat, it really boils down to a fight for the mind, doesn't it? It's about cognitive self-defense.
I think that's a perfect way to put it. The real struggle here seems to be intellectual. It's about carving out a space for independent thought, for deciding what you believe regardless of who's officially in charge or what the propaganda says.
Yeah, intellectual freedom as the last refuge.
And the widespread use of terms like cutting leaks shows just how deep the anxiety goes. It's about the death of upward mobility, sure, but maybe even more profoundly, it's about the collapse of trust. The complete erosion of faith in that grand national story they've been told their whole lives.
So the biggest loss isn't just economic, although that's obviously huge and painful. The deepest loss is faith itself.
Faith that the system is fair, faith that hard work pays off, faith that those in power have your best interests at heart. That seems to be what's really crumbling.
And people are replacing that collective state-mandated hope with just cold, hard, individual calculation, survival math.
It's the ultimate individualistic response to a system that demands collectivism, isn't it? Which leads us to a really difficult final thought for you, the listener, to chew on.
Okay, leave us with something challenging.
Well, the question these clear-headed individuals implicitly raise is this. If being clear-headed, if seeing the system for what they believe it is, leads primarily to strategies of withdrawal, lying flat, hiding, running, what does that actually mean for the future of that society? When your most aware, most educated, potentially most capable citizens choose disengagement over participation, is that a recipe for quiet stability because no one's rocking the boat? Or is it a sign of something much deeper, like structural exhaustion, a society slowly grinding to a halt because its own people have lost faith and opted out?
That is a powerful question to ponder. Is silent withdrawal a form of stability or slow decay?
Something to think about.
Absolutely. Well, as always here on Sip and Talk, we try to look at these complex situations from an objective international viewpoint. Our goal isn't to criticize or endorse, but just to present the information, the context, and how people themselves are making sense of their world based on the materials we've seen. Food for your own thought.
Keep seeking that clarity, that political caffeine. Your ability to think critically is always your most valuable asset.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you so much for tuning in to Sip and Talk. Please do subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss our next conversation. And hey, if you need a break from all this heavy stuff, definitely go check out our good friend Micky's YouTube channel, Micky to Life.
Yeah, Micky's got great stuff. Fun memes, cool travel vlogs. Always a good time.
Definitely worth a look. All right, everyone. Thanks again for listening.
We'll see you next time.